Hi, everybody. It's Marabelle Blue, and it's going to be a very modified and quiet KEM Top Talk because we are here at the Kinky Magazine headquarters, as I call them, because you all know I own Kinky Magazine. Now, I have on the phone with me at Packard Sonic, and that's PACKARD _Sonic, SONIC. We both follow each other on Twitter. He is very outspoken about the topics of politics and religion, and that's why I follow him, because he probably hates religion just as much as I do, but he's just more he's just more informative than I am, I guess, in the sense that's much more of his cup of tea, where I have my cup based everywhere. So I want to thank everybody for your patience, because I understand that people were having trouble hearing me for some ungodly known reason. So here I am, and I feel like I have a little bit more control because we're not at the Bottom Line bar tonight. Maybe I shouldn't drink any more Diet Pepsi either, because I guess like I'm burping too. Because Justine, unfortunately, her job is holding her hostage, so I figured, why am I going to run down to a bar and carry all of this stuff with me when I could just do the show here? And we've got the little lava lamp going. I've got a little vanilla candlelight on, so it's just perfect. At least for me it is. All right. So I told my guest that I would be talking about the news, and damn it, now it's like vibrating my phone. I forgot to like turn it off. Can you still hear me, Mr. Sonic?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my phone on this napkin to alleviate the vibration on my dresser. So, okay. It says, nope, you're still off the air. I don't understand, because I'm broadcasting. So everybody should be able to see me. Okay, you can see. All right, that's a good thing. So here we are in the chat room. I updated. Everybody should see everything on Twitter. I don't know why it says that, you know, I'm off the air. Santana is going to refresh, but hopefully people can see me. I don't know if I can see myself, but anyway,
I can see you just fine.
Okay, well then that's a good thing, and hopefully the rest of the world can see me as well.
Yeah.
All right, so here we are with the news. One of the biggest news to date thus far is Mama K Bear. You can see. Okay, let me stop trying to wonder who can see me or not, because now I have like 4 viewers. It says so far, so that's a good thing. 4 people are watching me. Yay! Santana can see me now. Okay, awesome. All right, so let's do a little bit of news. Now, we all know that Justine and we talk a little bit about stuff that's going on in our world here, because we live in a very reality TV world. So earlier this week, the ex-manager of Britney Spears says that he was punched, and he described from a witness stand on Wednesday a scene of domestic warfare, saying that the superstar's father chased him around a kitchen, punched him, and threatened his life. Now, this is the same way like we have gone through with other celebrity news, where you have somebody that's making all of these accusations. Who knows if it's true or not? You have to take everything here with a grain of salt. Except if anything's coming out of my mouth. If it's coming out of my mouth, it's the truth. Everything else, you just have to fucking question, because who the fuck knows anymore? Okay. I have a sub-slave who prepares all of these things for me, and a lot of the times he put things in here, and it's, and I have to yell at him because I don't know what the fuck he's putting in here. But
Hey, you gonna work on my staff?
Something, because I don't know. So anyway, one thing that I definitely want to bring up, and this is what's going to flow into the thing that we were talking about before. Oh, wait, but even before I bring up the debate, okay, one of the things that I wanted to talk about, the shit that's going on here in New York City. I don't know what the fuck is going on with people. Okay, here in New York, a cop was caught. Apparently, he had this thing where he was gonna start cooking women and eat them. But he was gonna do it in a way that he was gonna torture women. And apparently, he had 100 women, I guess, listed. And thankfully, I wasn't one of those women, because had I gotten a phone call, and who knows, I didn't get a phone call from the police department, but who knows what's going on through people's mind. Okay. Apparently this cop. Huh?
I'm sorry, the scarier is that he was a cop.
Yes, I totally agree with you on that note. Yes, that he's a police officer. And I don't know if this still goes on now, but the scary thing about all of this is that we have, and I don't know if this happens in your part of town, but here in New York, they had like this thing called the Blue Wall of Silence, where cops were protecting other cops from, their own crime. And in this case, the police officer, and I read the story, his wife had left him, okay? And I think before she left him, she had perused in his computer and she had seen some shit in there that had her suspicious. Now, they even have a child together. So tell me, how freaky is this? That not only was this cop having conversations, there's a text message that he was having with two other guys, and they have yet to find who those two guys are. Okay? One guy says, "How big is your oven?" And the cop says, "Big enough to fit one of these girls if I folded their legs. I was thinking, cook her over a low heat, keep her alive as soon as possible." Now let me just say to this cop, if you ever see this video, if you ever see the day of light, what women should do is you should go back to the old days, is create like some kind of a fire and put you in it and see how long you would fucking last in that fucking fire. Because let me tell you something, I would get such a joy hearing the fucking screams coming out of your fucking lowly ass mouth that you would think to do something like that to women. You have to be a sick fuck. And here's the sickening thing about New York City is that there is no capital punishment in this state. What kind of a fucking state do we live in that we have to support these fucking criminals with my taxes, no less, and everybody else's taxes because they have to eat and be housed? Okay, fine. If you robbed a bank, you didn't kill anybody, maybe. But to take somebody's life or to even think about it, this is some sick shit. This is there's no coming back from this. I'm sorry. You're talking about folding people's legs. It's like, you don't think that somebody would hear her screaming and like fucking call the cops on you? Sick. You're sick. You don't even deserve to breathe the same air that we're breathing here. You don't deserve to share that. I'm sorry. When it comes to this whole, spiritualness and spirituality, I have none when it comes to people like this. Zero. You don't deserve to breathe the same air here. I'm sorry. No, I'm not sorry.
And then the FBI got on his ass.
He can seriously go fuck himself. Okay. And what's even worse is that he has a child. So now this little girl is marked for life unless she changes her last name or something like that, which I would. And like fucking, what is that thing called when you divorce your parents? Emancipate?
Mm-hmm.
Santana says, Send him to GA. We got him. I'm telling you, because it's just absolutely disgusting. Wrong and disgusting. Mama K Bear says stone and burn him to death. Yeah, I mean, it's like there's no reason why this man should be existing. Now, Sonic, do they have capital punishment where you live at?
Actually, I don't think we do. We've had some incidents out here the last several years that we wish we had the capital punishment, but we don't have it currently now.
Okay, that's not a good thing.
The one that got me upset happened a couple years ago. A guy went out hunting, and apparently he shot several other hunters, and then he actually came across somebody I actually knew, but he didn't shoot him. He threw his gun away before that time.
Okay. Well, needless to say, there's a problem, and I look at it like this. There is a problem when religion, and I'm sure you can understand this, when religion comes into play and we start making choices on how people should live or who we should save based on, and not even the facts, but based on principles, man-made principles by people about religion. And now I have to get up and open the door because one of my cats wants to leave the room. This is probably the bad thing about doing the show here, because she's just like looking around. So give me 1 second. Okay, I'm back. Now, so it was very, very disturbing. Other than the nanny who stabbed her children, and I really don't want to get into that because it's just very, very disturbing. You know, I think that this cop kind of brings back to the fact that we all, as individuals who venture online, I mean, even myself, there's one thing I do is, you know, I can foursquare quite a bit, and when I was reading the story, it had me a little worried because of the fact that, you know, I'm here, you know, I Ustream, I'm a talk show host, I regard myself, not really as a celebrity, but, you know, people know who I am. I run a magazine, I do a talk show, I interview people, I foursquare, and I'm kind of thinking that maybe I should tone down on the foursquare, and, you know, if I'm in the city or whatever
Check in on Foursquare as you're leaving, or check in the places you don't normally go to. This way it throws everybody off.
Right, exactly. Which is something that I was doing at some point. Like, I would foursquare after I would leave, so if somebody decided to go there, I was already long gone. And then now I started getting into this habit of, you know, if I'm going to Grand Central, if I arrive there, I'll, you know, whatever. I feel like, I mean, I'm not in Grand Central, I'm there, but who knows who's already there? Do you understand what I'm saying? So it can be a little frightening. Frightening that you have a New York City cop that's talking about cooking women, and now you have two people that are out there, and hopefully they find these freaks, you know, because it's scary to know that. I mean, just around here where I live at, somebody was robbed, and the guy got on the elevator first. The elevator had a camera, and who knows how many times I could have passed this guy in the street. I don't know, but it's scary. It's scary to know that, you know, that this can happen anywhere, at any time, at any place, during the day, what have you. Now, in other news, in the business news, I was looking at that even though this economy has been pretty awful, they're saying that the sex biz is doing very, very well. It seems that people are buying more sex toys, and they're spending more money in adult stores, and they're speculating it's because of the 50 Shades. Sonic?
I've heard of 50 Shades. I have not read it, but I have heard of it. You know, I was just thinking, you know, people can't afford to go anywhere, so they're going to buy more sex toys so they can go home and have adventures all they want.
Well, you know, who knows? I mean, look, there are a lot of diseases out there that people have. There's a lot of STDs that people don't want to share or discuss because they're afraid that, you know, partners or potential partners will leave them or judge them or whatever the case may be. You know, if you're with a partner and you're not happy with them, leave them. But if you're with a partner and you want to enhance your sex life, buy toys, explore. I don't know if it has to do with the 50 Shades, but you have to remember that 50 Shades, you know, is a book. It's a fictitious book. We have a lot of people that are writing a lot of different erotic stories. You know, clearly this woman was bored. She wrote a book. I didn't read it. I'm kind of, you know, at I guess, in between because I didn't read it. So I can't say, you know, it's this overly horrible book. I listened to some of the audio. It was pretty bad. I mean, I can say that. But the fact of the matter is that if you want to buy any toys, you can always go to kinkymagazine.com. There's a store set up there. I have toys set up here. As a matter of fact, I have a toy right here. It's called, the Fetish Fantasy series is the Bondage Belt Restraint System. And I noticed that because it's such better lighting here in my room, you can actually see this toy.
I've heard of this toy. I've not used it, but I've seen it.
And if you can see, it comes with a free mask, and it shows you like all these different positions that you could use it in. You can use it in like this. You can use it in like this. You know, there's another position here, and it gives you a whole. I don't know who the girl is.
If she can fit in the box, I'll take her.
That's pretty funny, right? But, you know, if you're looking to buy sex toys, you can always go to kinkymagazine.com and buy your sex toys from there. So, in the business news, in the adult world, we are doing very well. Okay. And then here's something that I found really, really interesting that I had no idea this was going out. There's an article here in the Daily News here in New York, and it's titled Swinger State. Apparently, the ex-state senator Efrain Gonzalez and his wife will be held near Capitol in Albany. Oh, the party. There's a party that an ex-senator, don't bark. Not while I'm doing the show, because you're going to get hit right on the air. So apparently, this man was a senator, or I'm not sure what he was, but him and his wife, they are having swinger parties. And tell me how cool this is. He's like dressed up in a suit. The site is called, I think, Share Nation Events. And, you know, swinging is a big thing amongst people. And I don't think that it's a bad thing. I mean, I'm not sure if that's something that I would want to partake. But, you know, I look at it like this. If you want to cheat on your spouse and, like, have their permission while they're there, well, then, you know, this is a good way to deal with it. So I thought this was a pretty interesting... Huh?
To each his own. I mean, if they have... When it comes to sex, and they are consenting adults, and if they have agreed to this, I have no problem with it.
Yeah, I mean, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, not at all. You know, I look at it, if people are having fun and they're having a good time with each other and exploring each other's bodies, then so be it. You know, certainly I don't have anything against that. Just personally for me, I'm more of a fetish person than I am, you know, sharing my partner with other people. Now, that doesn't mean that maybe I don't like to see my partner engage with somebody else. But you have to get to know me to know that part of me, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. When someone explores my body, I give them a map.
So now, here is the topic at hand that will lead into Sonic discussing about politics and religion. This week we had the third and final debate with President Obama. I almost said President Clinton, but that's because I'm thinking about sex. I like thinking President Clinton. Okay, so we had the third debate with President Obama and Governor Mitt Romney. And I watched the debate, and I had such a good time watching this particular debate because I think, in my own personal opinion, Mitt Romney made an ass out of himself. And President Obama took advantage of that opportunity, especially the part where he had to explain about how we have aircrafts and ships and things of that nature. And then one of the things that really disturbed me was when, I forget the reporter's name, had brought up about the fictitious, what if, I forget what country, came to attack, and then he didn't want to answer that. And that to me is very disturbing, that you don't want to answer a question like that, whether it's hypothetical or not. You should be...
Tommy's really good at that. He's really good at dodging questions.
But that's not a good thing. If you don't know what to do, if the country is going to be attacked in any kind of way and you don't know what to do and you avoid that, does anybody want a president like that? Because you can't have a one-sided president that says, I know how to fix the economy, but then I don't know how to do everything else.
Yeah, he actually been going around the country saying that Reagan, he's relaying the story, saying that Reagan, when he became president, that he said, for 30 days, I don't want any national security stuff on my desk. I'm just going to focus on the economy. And that's completely wrong.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the things. And Mitt Romney thinks the whole country is just about the economy. The country is not a business. Businesses have losses and profits and things like that. And the country is not a business. It's never been a business. And him to inject his religion on top of all this crap, it just makes it even worse.
Now, when you were watching the debate, what were you thinking?
I was thinking that Romney is definitely not the man that needs to be in charge for one. I caught most of all three debates. Not quite all of it, but most all of it. I just caught the last part. That's always the best part of any debate. But this came up in a question on Twitter that someone should ask Romney if he uses his... if he's going to use his magic underwear for good or evil if he becomes president.
Wait, say that again? I didn't hear that last part.
Oh, I said that someone should ask Romney if he becomes president, if he's going to use his magic underwear for good or evil.
He probably can, but what, like, the Republican Party, and I don't know if you know a little bit of history in the Republican Party, were they always a religious sector? Because I don't remember them being so religious once upon a time.
In the last 20 years, they've actually gone a little bit more to the right. They really I've never seen them. I mean, it kind of started with Reagan. It's when all the religious shit started hitting the fan. Because he started putting, if you remember, Reagan would say, oh, well, my wife and I go after, and we get our advice from an astrologer, which is really fucking stupid. What the hell does an astrologer know in the goddamn country?
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing. Wouldn't using astrology go against the whole Christian value? Because you're not supposed to believe in that.
Absolutely it would, because in their scripture that an astrologer would be a false prophet. And false prophets were basically you were supposed to like witches. You were supposed to burn them. You weren't supposed to to deal with them at all. They should be killed, actually. And
Right.
that's in the Bible, that astrologers and false prophets were to be killed. And like I said, it's all started with Reagan with that kind of stuff, and now ever since then, everything's just been moving further and further to the right, and now we've gone so far to the right, they're just gone completely over the edge. Now,
Right.
Especially the religion, and they keep pushing their religious politics versus with abortion and all kinds of things, and Planned Parenthood. Well, I actually discussed it on my show just the other day, actually.
Oh, really? What was the discussion about?
Well, we talked about how, what was the guy's name here? I have to pull up. Well, we talked about Paul Ryan, and Senator Murdoch, said that rape can cause is God's will, that this woman became pregnant, and I'm like, we can't believe that this person is actually trying to run for a state senate, and people like him should not be allowed to run for state senate. If he thinks that God is invoking rape or invoking pregnancy because of rape, because it was God's plan. Well, if it's God's plan, then that means God intended the rape, and he just doesn't seem to understand it. But he says, "Oh no, I don't intend the God intended the rape," but overall, he does, because if God intended the pregnancy, he intended the woman to be raped as well.
Well, I think even the subject to bring up rape or to invite that, how could anybody in their right mind bring something like that up that is such a sensitive issue? Do you understand what I'm saying? Right. I mean, we hear a lot of it with women. We don't hear about men being raped. I'm sure men have been raped. We just don't hear about it, because it's not news.
Well, you're right. One, it's not news, but it does happen. Men can be raped. And I have seen several articles where a man has been raped by a woman. It does happen. It's not as prevalent, but it does happen. And I've said this in the chat room, and I've changed this on my show, that if men gave birth, there'd be an abortion clinic on every corner along actually every barn.
Right.
But if men don't get pregnant, women are basically thrown under the bus as far back as all times has been recorded. And if you actually, people who read the Bible, women have been thrown under the bus for over 2,000 years.
Now, do you ever discuss on your show your own personal views about religion and what you believe in?
Well, being an atheist, I don't believe in religion, but atheists can have beliefs. I mean, I can believe, that I'm going to get up in the morning or stuff like that, or I believe my daughter's going to come home from school on time, but or I can believe in somebody, but just the fact that I try not to use that language, because when I say belief to someone who is a religious nut, for example, they will take the whole other connotation and the baggage that goes with the word belief. And then usually for them, belief means in a religious sense. And there's no religious sex involved in that. So I just avoid using the language.
So explain, because maybe people don't know exactly what an atheist is. In your own words, what is an atheist?
An atheist is simply one thing. There's all atheists come in all shapes and sizes, all different, and we all have. It's like herding cats. But atheists have only one thing in one general thing in common: the lack of a belief in a God, and that's it, or any God for that matter. We don't believe in Zeus, Zulu. There's over 2,000 other gods that don't believe in us. Or the one, the Christian God, or Muhammad, or any of those. As far as I'm concerned, they're not gods. Muhammad was supposedly a real man, but there is no evidence for Jesus.
Right.
So that's and there's no evidence for God. I'm not saying there is no God.
Right.
Because I have no evidence there is a God, and so I just say there is no God.
When you were growing up, did you ever grow up with a said religion?
Well, my family at the time was Lutheran.
Okay.
And I did say at one time, and this was kind of disturbing, And it was a hard lesson. So if you're coming out as an atheist, be very aware of the people around you, especially in your own family.
Mm-hmm.
Because I did some studying on this, and I was like, I don't know, about 10 or 11 at the time. I said, I don't believe in this stuff.
Right.
And I was at my sister's house at the time, and she says, I'm not going to have no atheists in my house, and she just flipped out. For being someone that young, and I looked up to my sister, and I said, okay, fine, I'll believe you, whatever, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I left it at that, and I really never discussed it again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Many years later, but my mother never really pushed religion onto me.
Mm-hmm.
But I got moved out in the middle of nowhere, and the only person that was really nice to me was a person who had a faith, and that was the faith of Pentecostal. And the only way I could actually spend time with him, and because he was the only decent kid around me, I was actually studying this religion.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually involved in it for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
So I do know quite a bit about it. So when people say, "Oh, you're of the world," I know exactly what they mean. They think I don't, but I do. And because of and I had a full Bible study and the whole 9 yards,
Mm-hmm.
and I've actually been studying it quite thoroughly since then. And it is there's a lot of bullshit that's in the Bible.
I can agree with you on that. I can definitely agree with you on that, because I feel that those are just man-made words that have been transcribed over and over and over again, that now it's just distorted. It's not even, the truth. It almost starts off like a scroll. Up here in the scroll, it says one thing, and then all the way in the bottom, it's something completely different.
Yeah, there are several inconsistencies just in the story of Jesus alone, because a lot of it was basically just copy. And the basic story of Jesus was based on the story of Odysseus, which actually came before Jesus did. So that story was around a long time before that was. So it basically just said, I'm going to make another hero story, and I'm going to create my Jesus character, and because there is a lot of similarities between the two stories.
Now, once you solidified within yourself about your own personal beliefs, you said you have a daughter. Did you raise her?
Actually.
I'm sorry?
I actually have 2 daughters.
Okay, so did you instill your beliefs in them, or did you just raise them to kind of figure it out, let them believe?
Kind of a little bit of both. I mean, at the time, I had just my marriage was breaking up, and I didn't have my kids at that time. I mean, they were their mother, and I was fooling around the internet, and I just happened to come across it. I don't remember how I came across it. I came across the site. It's a good site. If you really want to start the road to reason, it's a site called Why Doesn't God Heal Amputees? And I just happened to come across it. I started watching the videos. I was like, hey, there's something that makes sense. Why does, they pointed out the logic of through page step A, B, C, D, and that clicked it all back onto me, because I was actually having some time. My ex-wife said at the time, when we were still married, said we wanted to go back here, but no, I didn't want to deal with that. I was taking a break from all this because something didn't feel right to me, and after my marriage dissolved, I haven't come across that site, and I was like, this is what I am. This is what I've always been, and I just didn't realize it.
So what do your daughters believe in now, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh, sure. I'm sorry. You're going to ask it. I forgot. I showed them this website, and my oldest daughter, she's like, yeah, that makes sense. So sometimes we would watch atheist videos or whatever, and we discuss it. And my youngest daughter one time asked me if she was seriously injured, and she wanted to call on a priest. Would I let her do that? And I actually had to think about it. And I said, if that's exactly what she wanted, then that's what she would get. But that would be her decision. So, and if if my kids wanted to become religious, even after, the stuff we talked about, the stuff they learned, that's up to them. That's their life. That's not mine.
Right.
And I put the same question to Christian parents, and I asked them what they would do. And they said, well, I would pray for them, and I would tell all their friends, and I would tell all my friends that they should pray for them and what's happening. It's like, why would you expose your child like that?
Right.
Why would you tell me this private moment that's just between you and your child to all your entire family and say, hey, that my kid has now decided not to believe in God, so you guys need to bombard them with being a Christian again. That would be totally wrong.
It's frightening because I don't understand why people, especially of the Christian faith, feel the need to go over the top with such insanity about being saved and, how important religion is. Like, why are people going over the top? It's like saying, the world is going to end in like 2 months. Well, we all know that's not going to happen.
Right, that's because we use our rational brain, and we know that the world isn't going to end tomorrow, and it's not going to end on December 21st.
Right.
And it didn't end. Several months, last year they had Harold Camping said the world was going to come to an end. And they put up billboards. They got people to donate money, and then the world didn't end. Of course it wasn't going to end because this is a failed prophecy. This has been failed prophecies throughout time. There's been like almost 100 of them. There's probably more, might be a little bit less. But these people, they go around and say, we live in the end times, we live in the end times. And people buy into this crap. And because they think that if it gives them hope, then believing in an afterlife and all this other stuff, it comforts them because they're afraid of dying. And that's understood. Atheists generally accept the fact is that when we die, something happens to us. I always ask them, and it's a great question to ask them, if you worry about your soul after you died, let me ask you this. Did you worry about your soul before you were born? No, I don't. Because, well, then why would you worry about it afterwards?
One of the people in the chat room says, blood guilty to convert and save godlike people. Do you agree? Do you agree with that statement?
Well, that's kind of a mixed question. Blood guilty? I mean, well, they do a lot of stuff with blood. I mean, that's a cult. And I've always said this, all religions are cults. They're just organized. Yes,
I totally agree with you on that.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter how organized or how accepted they are, they're all cults because there are different religions. There is the one that's basically in this country is a desert religion. And there in other parts of the South Seas, those are water religions. They are gods and goddesses on water. And the desert religion, they're out in the desert for 40 days and 40 nights or 40 years or whatever they were out in the desert for. But they're wandering around. But the thing is, there is no evidence for any of that stuff. All these stories, mostly stories are all in the Bible, that are basically just fiction. They're just basically parables and things for that time.
Right.
They have no bearing on today's life. It's like, okay, it was a book of fiction, put it on the shelf with the fiction, and leave it alone.
Right.
If you start believing it, what if you could pick up a copy of Spider-Man and like, whoa, this guy can fly through the air? Well, because he's flying from rovers off his hand. They put in stories that a lot of religious people say, well, Israel exists because it was in the Bible, or Bethlehem exists because of the Bible. One of the things is when Bethlehem was around, Jesus was not around the time Bethlehem. Bethlehem came much later. Most people don't realize that. And I would say if Bethlehem is real, if Jesus is real because Bethlehem is real, that means Spider-Man is real because New York is real. It's the same goddamn story.
Right.
And I'll tell you right now, there is more morality in comic books and from heroes than there is in the Bible. And
I have to agree with you on that note. You know, it's very, very strange because I think that people in society today have this double-sided behavior, and you know, if it adheres or works for them, then they agree with it. But if it doesn't work for society as a whole, then fuck it. You know, then you shouldn't follow through. I have another question for you because I have a friend who's a Satanist, and it almost seems like atheists and Satanists have kind of like the same beliefs. Now,
well, they're still. I've heard that, and I've tried to study on this. The thing is, they seem to go along the same kind of line.
Right.
But they still believe in a deity, and that's what we separate. Because, and people will say that atheists are Satanists. No, we're not. We don't believe in any God.
Right.
We don't believe in a devil. We don't believe in a God. Because God is just a Christian deity. And the devil is a Christian deity, and they're just an opposite coin of of Christianity. They just try to be contrary. I've heard people say they'll just say that just so they can just freak people out. I have no reason to freak people out. I just do it just by being myself.
Why? Why do you think that people get into the world of satanic and Satanism? Is it like a shock value for them that, you know, I just to say I'm a Satanist, I believe in you know, Satanism. Quiet, I'm doing a show. Sorry, my sister. Shh, get out, I'm doing a show. I'm gonna hit you when I'm done here. You're gonna get hit when I'm done because I told you I didn't want you barking.
Right, Coach. No, for some people it is the shock value. Some people I think they actually have been so screwed over by Christianity that they need something else to turn to, but they feel like they need something to worship. And I don't see, personally, you don't need anything to worship. I don't see any reason to do it.
But here's my thing. Here's my thing when it comes to satanic or Satanism. I don't think that, you know, a lot of people, and, you know, pardon me for saying it this way, but I'm going to understand the true value of what Satanism is about, and I guess what Anton LaVey was trying to convey to people, that Satanism is really about worshiping yourself. You are the deity. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. If anybody's out there watching this and I'm misinformed, please let me know, because
I haven't really. I focus more on Christianity, and I'm focused on that because these are the people who are in my face most of the time.
Right.
Satanist not so much. So I can't speak to it with any authority or knowledge, and I'd rather say that I don't know, and then try to, you know, make it something up and make it sound really good. Because as an atheist, I don't believe in a devil. I don't believe in a God. So, and as far as what they believe, I really can't say for sure. So I really don't know.
Well, here's the thing here's the thing that I think disturbs me is that if somebody commits a crime, they want to blame it on the devil. Or like you have the Christian people that say, oh, the devil is always at work. Where? Like, where is it working at? Because for me...
We actually covered this on my show about 2 weeks ago, actually. We actually talked about one of the subjects we talked about with demons. You know, if someone does something wrong, they say the devil made me do it.
Right.
Or a demon made me do it. Or I've been possessed by a demon. When it comes to something like that, it's just these people are not taking personal responsibility. So they can swap off their misdeeds onto something else. Say, well, the devil made me do it. Well, then it must not be your fault.
Right, exactly.
Back in the days when the Bible was written, I suppose they would say, well, you raped somebody or you murdered somebody, And, oh, the devil made me do it. Oh, they can say, all right, well, we'll just exercise the demon. It was a get out of jail free card for
Right.
people.
Exactly.
So
Exactly. Exactly.
But as far as blaming the devil, that's just passing the buck to something that doesn't exist. I mean, you might as well just pass it right back and shove it up your own ass.
No, that's hilarious.
Well, it's exactly it. I mean, if you go onto YouTube and look up Patrick Hopestad, we covered that. We talked about demons, and it was actually had some really good discussion.
Okay, you can't. I'm in the middle of doing a show. You need a what?
What kind of wood?
It's in the cabinet.
Okay. I won't have a bar.
Okay. Sorry about that. I have some people over, so I'm sorry. Continue your point.
Oh, anyway, but yeah, they blame demons, and because, like I said, that they don't want to take any personal responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they take personal responsibility,
Mm-hmm.
then they have to pay the consequences. It's just like the same thing with believing in a God. If they believe that Jesus died for their sins, then anything they do,
Mm-hmm.
well, I can just pray to Jesus,
Right.
I can be forgiven.
Right, exactly.
No responsibility for my actions.
But here's the whole thing. Who made Jesus a god? Because this is where I get, not confused, but people who are such fucking hypocrites, because you want to make this man a god, so to speak. But then other people that have come in and say that they are a prophet, they're regarded as like crazy. And technically they are. Jim Jones was a fucking nut because he took everybody to Guyana. They didn't know where the fuck they were. He made them drink poison juice, and anybody who tried to escape, he had people go after them to kill them.
Yeah, he actually set himself up as a god. When he went down there, and I actually just remember hearing, I listened to a podcast about this about 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
When Jim Jones went down to Guyana, he actually set himself up as a god. So he basically held their lives in his hands, life and death. Mm-hmm. And he said, if you don't do this, if you don't drink this juice, and that's where the saying comes from, drinking the Kool-Aid, because he poisoned them with Kool-Aid.
Mm-hmm.
He said, you're going to drink this, or we're going to shoot you. And people said, okay, we're going to go drink it. And he would do this. I don't say it every day. It's been a while since I actually studied this. But he would do this very frequently and make them drink this. And so if they didn't do it, he would kill them. And so the one day when he actually did this, he actually poisoned it, and then they would drink it, and they would die, and the little kids were either injected with poison or they were shot. And it was a tragedy.
Well, it's horrible. It's hard, and this is the thing that I think that people forget. These type of incidences that happen, within America. I don't know about other countries. I can only speak for the country that I live in right now. These are the incidences that have been brought up over and over and over again. And then people still go ahead and praise the same kind of God, I guess. I mean, I don't know. To me, it was a person who was spiritual, who spread the good word, and then they killed him. Because why did they kill him? Because he was fucking around with, whatever money that other people were making. I saw it on TV.
It's very classic, and I've talked about this too, is that especially when it comes to making money, if an atheist makes money, it's because the devil wanted him to have money. But if a religious person makes money, it's because God wanted him to have the money.
Right.
There is no God-given dissonance between the two. I mean, if they're successful in a business, it doesn't matter if they believe in a God or not. It's just they're just be successful. Just when, I'm not going to say all religious people, but people who preach the faith and they become super religious, is because they're selling snake oil. And people want something to believe in, and even no matter how fucking crazy it is. And if they actually, and I said this before, if you read the Bible, you will become an atheist because the Bible is the strongest source for atheism there is on the planet.
Well, I will tell you this much. When I was growing up, and we were raised Catholic, when I was growing up and I was going to church, I bought it for a little while. But then I sat there in the church one day and I became very confused as to why he was born in December. Something started going in my mind where why he was born in December, but then somewhere in March he was killed, you know, and the whole resurrection thing. So I was confused with the timing. I don't know how to explain it in words, but something happened where I was... I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. I'm sorry. That's very common. Actually, back then, the sun that they were speaking of that would go down in December was actually the sun, you know, the one in the sky.
Right.
And when it would rise in March, it was actually when it would come back up. The sun would actually start coming back up. That's when spring would come back up. That's where that actually started from. So with that's where the whole story centered around that. Well, if the sun comes up at this time, well, then the son of Jesus came, or the son of God came up at the time. Because the sun at that time was worshipped like a god, because it would go down, it would come back up, and they would be, and the moon would chase after it. So they'd have, like in Egyptians, they have, I'm not saying them, it's, I can't remember the name off the top of my tongue here, but they have the Osiris, who chased the sun away, and then in the wintertime, then it would be reversed in the summertime. So one was the goddess of the darkness and of hell and Hades and everything, and the other one, because you know at dark time, at nighttime would be dark and everything.
Right.
And the sun would be the opposite, complete opposite.
I think
basically the religion from anyways is followed from the Egyptians.
Well, you know, and then what about the concept about that we all come from the same place, that we all stem from Africa? Like, what are your thoughts on that? Because I'm kind of like on the fence with that. It's like, are we really all from Africa? You know, is this...
Well, there was at one time there was a supercontinent. It was called Pangea. And the continent did drift. I mean, so I'm not 100% on my biology on that, but so I really couldn't give you an informed opinion on that. I can wave at you too, but they can't see me.
I mean, because I wonder sometimes. I mean, I question those things not because of anything, but just to educate myself. And I think that's what a lot of people should do. We should all ask questions. We shouldn't just assume or think. You know, sometimes I would hear some of my friends, you know, who are black would say, oh, you know, we all come from the same place. And it's like, are you saying that because you're black, or are you saying that because you know for a fact? Because, you know, don't say things just because you're on this power trip or you're trying to make this radical statement or whatever the case may be. You know, I have different friends of all different nationalities and races, and I love them all. I don't look at them as different people, but when they start discussing certain things, sometimes it makes me uncomfortable, because it's like, okay, you know what, we didn't grow up that way, so like, where's all this coming from? Back when I was growing up with my friends, we didn't you know, separate everybody. Yes, there were girls that we didn't like, but you know, we weren't like separate people. You people over there, and
that's simple. That's just when you separate yourselves out like that. That's just simple tribalism in its basic form. I mean, kids do that because, you know, we all get in our little groups or cliques or whatever. We call them cliques now, but that's just it's a group mentality. That's just it's just part of our brains, and that's just how our biology works. We focus on, and we kind of stick with the people that we're familiar with, and we know we're going to watch our backs. It's just that's just part of our like I said, just part of our biology.
Now, Packer, are are you in this in the chat room? Because somebody just made a comment about he gave up on the Catholic Church when he was 7 years old. They called my house because I wasn't putting my money in the yeah. Like, why? Why would you call somebody and disrupt their day because they weren't putting in money?
Really big. The Catholic Church is really big on making sure that people get their give them their money.
How would they even know? How would they even know?
Oh, they have records. They keep records on. They keep tabs on. If you're involved in the Catholic Church, I mean, really involved in the Catholic Church, they keep track of how much you've actually given. I'll give you an example. There's been a recent story where there was a lady person was going to have wanted to have someone in their family buried because they didn't pay the Catholic Church their tithes, their whatever. They didn't give enough, or they didn't give any. They stopped giving it at some point. They said, "Hey, you're not allowed to bury your family member in our cemetery or Catholic cemetery because you didn't donate, or you stopped donating, or whatever." I don't remember the exact story, but it was right along those lines. And so they keep track of this kind of stuff. So if they said, hey, they were going to call and say, hey, why didn't you donate, give your money to your catechism class or your catechism donation, they would have record of this because they keep track of it like if you're going to have what's the word? Having a circumcision, and that's all religious based too. They keep track of all that stuff. Like, okay, you need to be confirmed on this date because you're a certain age. So they know all this shit. They keep track of it.
Well, I don't know if you saw the comment thereafter, but he just mentioned that his envelope had a serial number on it. So I guess that's one way that they can track people if they're not donating money or not.
Right, exactly. And it's a business, and that's like you just said, that it feels like a business. And it is a business. Religion is just a business, just like anything else. The only thing is they don't pay fucking taxes, and they should, because they're sticking their nose in their politics right now. And that's going on, this is part of the discussion tonight. They are pushing their religion into politics. And legally, any church that pushes politics, their religion into politics, they're supposed to lose their tax-exempt status. Has it happened yet? Not that I've heard.
But what is then doesn't that contradict then the separation of church and state? Are they not supposed to be putting these two things together? This is the reason why other countries are fighting because of religion. So what makes the United States any different from any other fucking country that's fighting over the same thing? You have people in the Middle East that are trying to convert people into a Muslim or Islamic faith. And
I'll give you an example. Over in England, their church is actually part of the state. It's actually a state. As they say, a state-sponsored religion. So their religion kind of watered down because it's more control. And a lot of people over there, they're actually leaving religion in droves.
Right.
The Catholic Church over in Italy, and that's where the Vatican is, and it's a country unto itself. They have to pay within their taxes. They have to pay their taxes, and then they have to pay a special tax to the church. So that's all sponsored through the government. Where here, it's not. And they're not supposed to get government bonds or issues or special dispensations from the government to get anything more from the government. They're not supposed to, but they still somehow senators who get got up their ass. And they think they have to be on a special mission from God. They've been watching the Blues Brothers a little bit too much, and they try to put in stuff into it so they force their religion. But once they find out what they're doing is going to open the door to all religions, then they say, "Oh no, well we don't want this," and they shut the door.
Right.
And they just don't. They think the problem is they think this is a religious government.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. It's a secular government.
Mm-hmm.
And they think that the United States is a religious, based on religion. It's not.
Mm-hmm.
It's based on secular values.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think that this world is a little screwed up.
Well, yeah.
You have.
It's because there's no God.
I mean, it's like. I mean, it's like. Don't get me wrong. I really believe that there are some good people in this world, but then you have some people who have distorted, religious views or whatever the case may be.
Well, I said this on one of my shows that you hold the Bible up to a mirror, it looks like a funhouse mirror. But then the Escher felt there, the chat room said that the butler in the Vatican got prosecuted for leaking sensitive information. We covered that on the show as well. They're the ones of the people who leak information, but they protect pedophiles. That's just totally fucked up.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and that's the one thing that's disturbing. It's like, save a life, save a pedophile. I mean, it's like, what? Why? Like, I don't understand the concept. Personally, for me, if somebody is doing something horrible, especially to a child, and I can't even fathom, a child who's so innocent and doesn't understand and has their little life taken away, at the hands of.
I think a big problem with it, a big problem with it, especially with Catholicism, is the fact that they're molesting those little boys because they have no sexual outlet. And the church has never been able to completely bridle in sex. And that's where the big problem is. If they can't control sex, then they're going to control your thought process around sex.
Right.
And especially the Catholic priests, they're not allowed to have sex. So they look for an outlet, and restraining human sexuality is the worst thing they could do to a human being. And they see these little boys, or little girls, I guess. There's more boys, I guess. And
that's what we hear the most. Then it makes you wonder why males become Catholic priests, because a lot of people say, well, they're gay and they're trying to escape that. They feel like they're going to be punished, so they'll turn to a religious faith so that they can get away from that.
Yeah, well, pedophilia in itself is, I don't want to say disease, but it's a mental disorder. And I think that people who have this disorder should not be allowed into the Catholic Church. They should not be allowed into religion in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
Unfortunately, there's no way to give someone a blood test and say, oh, yeah, you're a pedophile, don't go to church. There's no blood test for that because it's a mental disorder.
Right.
But and I think the reason why you're saying was asking why was more boys. I think because boys, and this is speaking from as a male perspective, boys look up to their people, the male figures around them, as role models. And if they feel they are told that okay, this is okay, then they don't question it because it's coming from someone that's a role model, and they're supposed to be a role model in their life. And the other thing is that little boys are always told that, hey, take it like a man. You gotta deal with this yourself. And you don't say this to anybody. You gotta keep this to yourself. With girls, we're always telling them, someone touches you, something goes on, tell somebody. With little boys, they don't push this enough, and I think that's the problem here.
Those are extremely good points to bring up. And I'm telling you, if Justine was here, she would have a lot more to say on this because she's extremely outspoken. Not that I'm not outspoken, but Justine works a lot with people in the basically more in the porn industry than anything else. So I know that this is definitely, a very touchy subject when it comes to these things, because people try to make guesstimations on why people pick career choices, just as being a porn star, becoming a stripper.
I have my own hypothesis. I don't take theory, so I don't have any evidence, hard evidence. But I have a hypothesis on people who become some points. Now, I'm not saying in all cases. There's some people that generally just want to have lots of sex. And, hey, there's nothing wrong with that. And when it comes to kids, especially if they've been abused, there are two different things I think that generally happen inside. I've taken psychology classes, so I know a little bit about this. That if something happens like that in their lifetime, especially when they're young, one or two things generally happens, and I've had a lot of discussion on this with a lot of people over the years, that they will either they will see sex and they will turn away from it completely, and they will not. When they get older, they will not engage in it. They will not look for it.
Right.
They will become like their own personal nun without the God part of it, or they won't. They just won't interact with anybody else of the opposite gender.
Right.
I'm not saying that's how lesbians become or gay guys become. That's not what I'm saying there. That it might be a factor. I don't know. But then there's the opposite, where they become hyperstimulated. It's like, well, this felt really good, and I've got to have this as much as I can. And so they are constantly on the prowl, looking for more sex partners to fulfill this hole in their life that they're trying to fill constantly with more and more sex.
Well, here's another thing. Here's another thing I want to ask you in bringing up those points and reading the comments that's going on in the chat room, because somebody says, sometimes I feel like it's a person's sex drive that leads them to those professions, and sometimes it's some kind of trauma, but not in all cases, which begs the question, what about, he talks about professions. What about teachers? I mean, my sister the other day makes a comment about how teachers were people that you looked up to. You were learning from them. You were interacting with them on a regular basis. This is a person that you saw 5 days a week, for a couple of hours a day. You would be engaged with this person who's teaching you. And now you have some teachers that are like fucking their students, or principals that are fucking their students. And I mean, one example was that woman, Mary Kay Letourneau, and she ended up being with the guy. After she did all her jail stuff, she still ended up being with him. She still ended up having children with him. So, does it beg the question, do we...
I think that's a problem with our society. I think that's really a problem with our society, how we look at sex crimes between men and women. When a woman commits a sex crime, they're like, oh, well... It's okay. It's given more of a green light. And they, like what you said, with the woman teacher went up to the male student. They're like, okay, well, it's probably more of the guy's fault than it is her fault. He probably did something to seduce her, and so it's really not her fault. But let's flip the coin on that. If it was a guy and seduced the same age child, 16 years old, let's say 16, 17 years old, then people get out the pitchforks, they get out the torches, and they go after him, and they tell them that, they want to lock him under the jail cell, and they want to bury the key with him. And that's what the problem is. When it's the woman, it seems like it's okay, but the guy is not.
But wait a minute. When you're saying when it's the woman, are you talking about a female teacher? Because they are treated just as the same as male teachers. They do.
Not always. Not in every case. Like there's that one woman teacher that I think she was out in New York. I'm not really sure, but she was really pretty. So she was given a lot of preps, and they basically gave her a slap on the wrist. By comparison to if it had been a guy. Because she went and did it again, and they said, oh, well, they kind of slapped her, don't do it again. She did it again, and then she got a little harder slap. She didn't get quite the same punishment if it had been a guy. The guy had done this, they would have locked him up for a good portion of the time. They wouldn't have let him out.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing that's quite disturbing. Why would anybody ruin their career for a student, just to fuck a student? I mean, Asteroid makes a comment, he goes that teachers got pretty hot the past couple of years. Okay, so they have.
That's where the cognitive dissonance comes up. if they're not thinking, they're thinking with the libido. They're not thinking with their brain. They're seeing the student. They're going, you know, kind of like that, or they feel like I'm not saying this is in all cases. Maybe this might be more towards the mindset of the woman. I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying it might be, just based on the case studies I've seen, that they feel that they become emotionally intimate with the student. And they don't mean to, but in some cases that's what happens. And they become close to the student. And for women, intimacy on a mental stage is more important than a physical stage. For guys, it's the reverse. It's the more physical, and the mental intimacy comes later.
Well, you know, it's still, I mean, personally, for me, my own personal opinion, if I was getting into some kind of a profession where if I knew, I mean, there has to be some conscience going on in your head saying, if I act out on this particular person, I could lose my job, I could lose my career, I don't have a backup plan, this is my whole life. I mean, is a student worth losing everything? I mean, wasn't not too long ago there was a teacher, I forget where he was from, that he was with the student and the mother was fighting, saying, I'm going to get him, and you know, he had left his wife and he moved in the girl, and then it so happens that I don't know, I think they caught him with something, or he had something on his computer and the girl dumped him. I mean, it was a whole big fucking mess.
Yeah, and unfortunately that does happen. I think like I said, people start thinking with their libido. They generate this fantasy, and sometimes they try to act it out. As far as, you know, their job and their career, and in some cases, they think that they're smarter than the system, and they think, maybe I can get away with this. Let's see if I can. And I think sometimes that's what drives them. I'm not saying it's in all cases. I'm just saying in some cases they might go, let's see what I can get away with. And since I'm an authority figure in this person's life, and since this person seems to trust me, maybe I can get away with it a little bit more. See how far I can push the envelope. I'm not saying that's in all cases. I'm saying that's a possibility. That's in some cases. And for others, their career, it may just come secondary, because I always say you are not your job. You are not your career. You are a human being first. And since you're a human being first, your natural desires and your thought processes come first. And sometimes you just can't override them. Sometimes people will go to work, for example, and they will say, oh, I've spent all this time and energy becoming a town councilman, for example. And they say, well, maybe if I just steal $5 from petty cash and use it for lunch. Okay, I got away with it. Let's see much more. And they're right now, they are risking their job. Right. And they take, well, let's see, if I take $10 a day, and that's how people finally get caught if they've taken like $500,000. Right. I worked for this company. I'll give you an example. Right from my own personal life. I worked for this company, and I was manager out there, and I had, we had to get mail in from FedEx, which have to go put on trucks to go to the post office. And I had mail on these pallets, and I have no idea what happened to it. Well, I left the manager position, and the guy that they put in place, in charge of the place after I left, was actually behind with him, and one of the other drivers was stealing this mail and selling it or whatever. I'm not sure what selling it for sure, because they did get caught, because the post office came in for the cameras and they caught them. And myself, I can't see risking my job for a few lousy trinkets. You know, I saw very expensive items come through. I saw very expensive computers, all kinds of things. I saw PCs come through. I thought, that was a Macintosh. I might be jumping, but
well, you know, I mean, that's the thing.
I'm not going to risk my job.
But that's the thing, is that people are doing things and they're not thinking of the long-term consequences, I guess I should say, of their actions. Going back into politics, now that we're talking about long-term consequences and actions, everybody is upset with Obama, but then at the same time, there are people like, the lesser of two evils, go with the devil, all these terminologies and lingos that people use. In your own personal opinion, as an American citizen, do you think Obama has done a pretty decent job? And,
overall, what I know about what he has done, I think he's done a lot better job than what Bush did. Bush ran us into the ground. And you don't know anything about the history of Bush. I call him Bush 2.0 because we had Bush 1 and Bush 2. He ran an oil well, and he ran that into the ground. How do you lose money on running an oil well? It's pump fucking oil, for God's sake. You might as well have come to put it in your pants for yourself without an effort. There's no way you can go broke having an oil well, but he managed to do it. And somebody thought the goddamn government. It was just fucking stupid. And Obama has cleaned up a lot of the crap that Bush did. And people say, whoa, is this Bush's stuff? Or this is Obama's problem? This is Obama's problem. Well, you know what? A lot of it is. But right now, because he's inherited it.
Right.
Bush had 8 years to suck up the economy. I say we should give him 8 years to straighten it out.
Yeah.
Let me go back to Clinton for a second. We had Bush 1.0. He only had 4 years to fuck up the economy. Clinton had 8 years, and by the time he left office, we had a goddamn surplus. We were out of the red. We had a surplus of cash in our government. And Bush came in, and now we are literally trillions in debt. Now people keep saying he has spent the most money overall. That's a goddamn fucking lie. He's actually spent less money overall. Bush and Reagan, actually, Bush 1.0 and Bush 2.0 and Reagan, has spent more money alone, each one of them, than Obama has in his whole career so far.
Right.
And he's actually brought the deficit down probably slightly. It's not a lot, but every time he goes to put something forward in Congress, the Republicans, they stonewall, they filibuster, and it comes down to one thing, and I've said this on my show, and a person who was on my show will not agree with me, but it's because he's black. And they do not want to take orders from someone who's black. And I don't care what person's skin color is. He's a fucking man who's trying to do a fucking job.
Right.
Period.
I agree. I totally agree with you on that. I'm so with you on that because I get so tired of the whole racial thing. Earlier today, I was watching something on the news. They were talking about that the reason why Colin Powell had endorsed him because he was black. Yeah. People can't think outside of the box, that they didn't think that maybe even Colin Powell got disgusted with his own party and he believed in that change that Obama was talking about. Because it was funny, 4 years ago, okay, we were so riding on that horse and buggy for change that nobody was looking at skin color, okay?
Right.
I certainly wasn't looking at it that way. A lot of people that I knew weren't looking at it that way. We were all looking at, we have had it with George Bush. We need some fucking change here in this country because nothing is going right. Now all of a sudden, here we are separating again and, you know, talking about black versus white, etc., etc. And that's not what this is about. In order for this country to fix itself up, I guess, you know, we've got to stop focusing on the differences of other people. And nobody ever thought that maybe Colin Powell himself just got fucking pissed off.
I can honestly tell you right now, just from the way I've seen the Republican Party act, that if, just for hyperbole and just for a sake of example, if Obama had been white, they would not have been brought up, oh, well, he wasn't, they would have never asked where he was born. I mean,
You're right. You're absolutely right.
It only happened one other time in our country's history. But that was back in the early 1800s when somebody was accused of not being born in the United States and they thought they were born in Canada. And that was the only other time that ever came out. I can't remember which president it was or the person who was running for president was, but that was the only one other time it came up. But this was pushed almost within several months of Obama becoming president. I mean, they're saying, well, he's Kenyan. It's like, well, his father's from Kenya. So it's like, what is the problem here is they think, well, if your father is born somewhere else, that makes you automatically from there too. No, it does not, goddammit. It just means your father was from there. If my father was born on the moon and I was born on Earth, does that mean I'm a moon man? Well, I mean I'm a goddamn airplane.
But this is the whole thing.
Let's be realistic.
This is the whole thing. Then you have people that are talking about how he favors the Muslim people, and that is such a fucking racist comment to make. That really, really is. You know, I have a friend.
Arab and all kinds of stupid things, and it's just he's more Christian than fucking Romney is. Romney's a cultist anyway to begin with. I mean, I like to say they're all cults anyway, but
I have a friend.
It's a general cult.
Well, yeah.
More of a cult, I should say.
I have a friend who's actually of the Islamic faith. He had converted to Islam, I think, some 10, 15 years ago. I'm not quite sure of how long it's been. It's been quite some time. He's white, okay? He's very, very white. We dated briefly, but, you know, because of his said religious faith, and I don't believe in that religion, we couldn't be together. And I was fine with that. I mean, you know, what are we going to do? You understand what I'm saying? There's a differences of opinion. I'm not willing, you know, I'm not willing to convert, but however, once people start labeling, well, the Muslim and favoring this and favoring that, aren't you considered some kind of a racist?
Well, it's not a matter of that. It's not a matter of race. It's more along the ladder of belief. And I had this discussion on one of my a topic. I talked about witches and things like that. A witch is not real. Muslims are not real. Christians are not real. We're just people. And Muslims and Christians and witches and tigers and haberdashers or whatever, they're just labels. And Richard Dawkins put it best. When a baby is born to a Christian family, does that mean that baby is Christian? No, it means it's just a baby. If the baby is born to a Muslim family, does it mean that baby is Muslim? No, it's still just a baby.
Right.
The Muslim and the Christian faith are indoctrinated in. It's like adding software to a computer. In this case, it's all bad code. It's like a Macintosh and PC. The components are basically the same. It's all a matter of programming. And that's basically what it is. If a child grows up, let's say he's born I'll give you a perfect example. If a woman is a Christian mother, and she gives birth to a baby, and the baby is spirited away and raised in a Muslim faith, does that make the baby still Christian, or does it make it Muslim? They'll say, well, the baby's not Muslim. Well, that does, well, the baby's born Christian. How do you know? I'm not kidding. I'm just saying in the example. They said that the baby was born a Christian, or the reverse. They still said that the baby was still born a Christian, or they still said the baby was born a Muslim.
Right.
It's the same thing. We are not our label. We are just people. We label ourselves so we can identify with the people around us. Personally, I label myself as an atheist because I don't believe in a God, and that's all there is to that. I mean, there are Republican atheists, there are Muslim atheists, there are Hindu atheists, there are Chinese atheists,
right?
Black atheists or white atheists, or it's such the whole gamut. But that's the only thing that ties together. You should not believe in that God.
I'm having like I have to tell you, I'm having like a deja vu moment, because I swear we had this conversation before, and we have like, you know, about 6 minutes left. But I wanted to say, it's not only having all different types of races who are atheists, but that also falls in the same category of religion, because religion has broken down into so many different types of beliefs.
Yeah.
I mean, you have Buddhism, and then there's all these different levels of Buddhism, and I think it just all goes back to people making up things to adhere. I'm sorry?
Christianity alone has over 35,000 different religions,
right?
Different denominations.
Right. Exactly. So it's that need to invent something to adhere to their own personal needs, and that's what it comes down to. Asteroid Belt is making some very good comments in the chat room, and one of the things that he said before, I'm going back when he was talking about way back before, he was talking about karma and the universe, and he just keeps it simple. And I understand, I'm the same way. I keep it all about, you know, if you're good to the universe, good things will come to you. Sometimes not all good things come to me, but does that mean that I was a bad girl that day? Probably not. But, you know, it's just the way of the world. It's life. It's what things happen. So I try not to question everything. I just go on and live my life and enjoy it as I see fit. I don't worry about people who don't like me or who disagree with me, or, you know, try to make a mockery out of me for whatever reason. When I see people try to do things like that, it just reminds me that they're insecure in their own skin about who they are within themselves, and, you know, they'll get over it at some point or another. And it has nothing to do with me, because if it wasn't me, it would be somebody else. It's almost like a grown-up bully, you know. That we have the same thing with people that, you know, for whatever reason they don't like you, is because they really don't like themselves, and that I truly believe, because when I feel uncomfortable about something, I have to stop and take a look back at me and say, okay, what am I doing? You know, what is it that I'm not happy with that's making me feel this way? So you know, with that being said, that's just the way I feel about my own personal, you know, life and what it is that I believe in. I want to thank you so much for being on the show.
You're very welcome.
You know, KEM TopTalk, we're in the process of possibly moving to a studio. I'd love to have you back. We can definitely do Skype, and everybody can see who you are. And if you could just tell the audience where we can find your show so that we'll be able to listen to you.
I have the most nomadic podcast on the net. Right now we're over at blogtv.com/people/protest. We do our show on Friday nights, 9 p.m. Central Time, and we post the show from there. The show is up also on iTunes. Just look for Packard Protest, and if you have Stitcher Radio, look for Packard Protest there. On YouTube, I just post segments of the show. This way it's about 5 to 7 minutes of the show. This way you can digest it. You don't have to sit for an hour-long show, because the show lasts about an hour.
Awesome. If you could do the chat room people a huge favor, if you can type in those links so that we have it, and then I have it, because I'm going to put those links up when I put the information on the show, and everybody will be able to find you. And I have to tell you, I have to say that I miss Justine such a great deal. I know that she's at her job, probably fuming that she's there, because she's going to be out within the next half hour. And everybody, if you're heading over to the bottom line, there's a Halloween party tonight. Definitely go there. Unfortunately, I cannot be there because there are things that I need to take care of. Who knows if there's going to be a hurricane here tomorrow or not, or Monday, whenever it is it's supposed to begin. But somebody's going to be playing tomorrow at Otto Shrunken Head. They're going to be playing some Jimi Hendrix tunes, and I really want to go see it, and the MTA is talking about shutting down the fucking train, so hopefully that won't happen. I really would want to see that.
I've heard that I've heard that comment before in the sexual community, pulling the trait. I've never really understood what it meant. And I've heard a lot of things.
Well, I want to thank everybody for watching. We will definitely be back next week at the bottom line. So we'll hope you'll be catching up with KEM Top Talk. Again, I want to thank Packard Sonic for coming onto the show and talking about his views on religion and politics. And we're going to be back next week with much more stuff. So you stay with us, and the replay will be up shortly. So bye. Peace.
Bye.
Bye.
Check your folks at 9 p.m. Friday night.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.